My name is Rina, and first of all, thank you so much for coming over the talk. To this talk, I will speak in English. I don't know German, sorry. I'm Rina, and I'm the CEO of Radby. We are one of the companies in the Atlassian ecosystem. As an Atlassian partner, we do consultancy work, especially with large pharmaceutical and medical technology companies who are doing or who want to do digital transformation. And we also sell apps on the Atlassian marketplace. I want to take you to about 2 months ago. It was Sunday morning, and I was sitting in my bed, checking my emails on my phone. Nothing to do on Sunday morning, but that's me. And I see that Beth sent me a message overnight while I was sleeping. The subject said, "Need help with a major e-signature issue." Major with all caps. Okay, I sprint from bed, I go to my laptop, and I check what's happening. Discovered that she found a bug in the 19th minute, a behavior that she did not expect. Immediately, there is a storm in my head. Oh, I'm committed to taking Layla to her Hebrew class this morning, and then I have other plans for the afternoon. That's my Sunday ruined. Why did she discover this in the last minute? I always thought we needed more time for testing, but they wanted to rush the projects very quickly. It's actually not such a major issue. Definitely not a major with all caps issue. Why did I not think earlier about this edge case? Were I lazy? I should have known that it will pop up. Is there a way actually to solve it? I hate when Jira configs become so complex and convoluted. And what other problems are lurking there under the project just to be discovered with all the hundreds of users who are going to start using this project just in 2 days? Well, finally, I quiet everything down. One thought prevails. Beth is now arrested in the Turkish prison, and she's counting on me to get her out of there. A woman's got to do what a woman's got to do. So I look at the clock. I have an hour until I need to take Layla. So let's spend this hour and figure out what I can do about this. 30 minutes later, I have an idea of a plan. I respond to Beth by email. I have an idea of how to solve this bug. I managed to reproduce it, and I can see it. I know what you are talking about. I have a committed plan for this morning, but I'll look at this in the afternoon. I will keep you updated. Hit send. Go and pick Layla, take her to her class, and spend the morning with a bunch of 3-year-olds. Then go, return her to her mommy, come home, and spend hours on the computer. By the evening, Beth is out of the Turkish prison. And I was pretty proud of myself because the solution eventually, I managed to package it into one isolated Jira rule. I knew that Ian, the admin on the other side, will be able to follow the logic and understand what's going on. It will be 2 minutes for him to install it. And if worse come to worse and something goes wrong and they need to disable it, it's very easy to just disable it. Beth sighed such a big sigh of release that I could hear her all the way from Kansas to Cambridge. Thank you so much for looking at it on a Sunday. I just became 5 centimeters taller. The project role went fine. It's been already 2 months since then, and we have not discovered even one major issue. Beth and her project team are being cheered up. I'm so happy. Now, I'll take you 2 years ago, a couple of years ago. Totally different situation. I'm sitting on my desk, and as usual, I'm working, and in the corner of my eyes, I watch my Slack messages, and suddenly I see the support channel become bold. So I'm quickly checking what's new in support. A support ticket came through. We got a timeout issue using the L2 filter. So yes, I am the CEO of Rugby, but as Rugby is a small operation, I'm also the chief consultant, the product manager to our Snapshots app, one of the testers, the chief marketeer, and the person who waters the plants. And yes, you bet, I'm also the main person who mans our support desk. And upon seeing that timeout keyword in the support ticket, my heart sank. Over the last 18 months, I have seen 3 million support tickets with this keyword. Our Snapshot app copies data from Jira and puts it into Confluence. Each time that the user triggers the app, there's a barrage of REST calls going all the way from our app to Jira, collecting the data, transforming it, packaging it, and putting it in Confluence. If the snapshot includes 15,000 Jira issues with 10 long fields of data for each, then the snapshot machine ensures that we do not drop a single field. This is watertight on our cloud app. But when Snapshots is installed on the on-prem version of Jira and Confluence, it often fails. It fails to sustain the communication, and there is a timeout message. Imagine we have this shoestring budget for marketing. And despite that, we managed to get some of the large corporates in the world to evaluate our app. But once they kick the tire, they hit a timeout. So it's really not reflecting so good on the app and definitely does not contribute to our sales. If they care enough, they will raise a support ticket with us. But what do we do in response? Of course we care. We ask them to send over log files. Then we deduct that it's one of the many number of reasons for timeout that totally depends on their infrastructure. In the minority of cases, we identify things on our side that we can improve, so we improve them, and it solves some of the problem. But in most cases, we deduct that the infrastructure on the customer side is just not sufficient. And when I discuss it with Arthur, who is the developer who's responsible for that piece of the app, he says, Rina, maybe a little bit patronizing, huge snapshots work perfectly well on our system. The timeout is caused because of something in the underlying layer, not on our side. Sheepishly, I suggest to increase retries on our side, and Arthur insists. Technically, that would not be a correct approach. The correct solution is to solve the root cause, and the root cause is the infrastructure. At that time, our conversion stats are awful. from each 12 customers who install our app, only one converts to a paid customer. Our funnel was hemorrhaging. But this new support ticket that just arrived will be different. The following morning, I'm just sitting on my desk and my phone rang. I'm looking at my phone, I see a number from Switzerland. Who from Switzerland is looking for me at this early hour of the day? I'm picking the phone. It's Richard. I'm moving quickly to a business mode. Richard is also a consultant and have used snapshots with his customers numerous times, all the time on cloud. But now, he has the first data center customer. He tells me that he is the consultant behind this customer who contacted us yesterday. He explains to me, Rina, they absolutely need snapshots to work for them. I need snapshots to work for them. The whole project depends on this functionality. Can you take care of it? Well, of course I can, or I want. And my stomach crumps. A stupid thought comes to my head. Finally, a desperate customer. Maybe we could find what is wrong with their infrastructure so we can help them fix the timeout problem and maybe understand for others too. And so we coordinate a call with them to troubleshoot the issue. The IT team on the customer side is super motivated to make it work. They get their infrastructure team involved. They map their complete AWS architecture. They investigate the configuration on each element that stands in the way between snapshots and their Jira and Confluence. For several weeks, Arthur spends more hours learning AWS terminology, adding log messages, and scratching his head than he spent sleeping. I become good friends with George and Lucas, the Atlassian admins on the other side, and even with Elena, who replaced George while he was on holiday. Until there was nothing more we could do. We ran out of ideas of what else we could ask the customer to change or to check or to test. The infrastructure looked fine, but snapshots still timed out. Finally, I drew a line in the sand. Arthur, I said, just add retries everywhere. Let snapshot retry several times and only then fail. Arthur was very skeptical and he didn't like it. But he had no choice. It took him 2 hours to add this change. And we sent it over to the customer to test on his test system. Snapshots became as reliable as a Swiss clock. That customer converted to a paid license, and our conversion rate increased 4 times overnight. The number of timeout tickets raised since is 0. Did Arthur learn something from the experience? Not really. He still does not feel it's the right approach. But do I care? Honestly not. Until today, I'm still flabbergasted of how I could be so wrong and not trusting myself to fix this sooner. Since then, I developed a strong allergy to anyone who tells me that the root cause is outside of what we can control. Such root causes are a false flag. Taking you now many, many years back. I am 17. I'm in my last year in high school. A straight A student with no dominant idea about what she wants to do. But I have an opportunity to go to university before going to the army. Because in Israel, when you finish high school, you go to the army. My mom is a very, very practical person. And she is working in IBM. And in IBM, software developers are at the top of the food chain. So she pushes me to go and study computer science, which is exactly what I did. And I hedged my risk. I said, I'll go for 1 year. If I don't like it, I can always drop and go to the army like everybody else. But I did like it because I like the studies and I like the boys. I met my husband there. And so I stayed on and I graduated. A few years later, I was assigned to work on one of the most interesting places on Earth. My office was located 4 stories deep underground in Tel Aviv, in the command and control center of the Israeli Air Force. When you work in such a place, even writing assembly code is exciting. Over time, my career took me places. I worked on software used in manufacturing of cars, so I visited the BMW plants. I worked in telecommunication project and still remember being in our headquarters waiting for Bug 2000 to bring down communications across the world. So we sat there in the middle of the night or in the afternoon seeing how 2000 arrives to Sydney, and nothing happened. I even got dangerously lost in one of the shanty towns around Johannesburg while being 6 months pregnant. I co-founded a medical technology company and got to learn more about prostates than I ever wanted. I learned how to use manual switchboards, implement sophisticated image processing algorithms, work on machine learning, schmoozed customer to sign invoices and acceptance notes, passed regulatory audits, hired people, fired people, and built businesses. And the surprises just keep coming. Yesterday evening, when I was making my way from Han Airport to here, someone picked up that I'm looking for the best route to get to Wiesbaden. He was a Brit living here, and he volunteered to show me the way. By the time we arrived here, we already discussed his love-hate relations with his Jira and Confluence. So I discovered that it's not that software is eating the world. Nowadays, it's more that Jira is eating the world. That's it. Thank you. Any questions? Sorry.
You become a co-founder for a medical company?
Yes, yes. So I was co-founder. It's a very funny story. I had my third baby, And my husband became friends with a gynecologist who was also an oncologist. And they started, my husband is a physicist. So while I was cooking the baby, they were cooking an idea for a startup. And then they decided to recruit me to manage the software. So that's how it happened.
I don't have a question, but I want to say thank you for sharing this impressive life and your personal story. It's really, really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I understood that you have 3 children?
Yes.
Yes, and you were living around the world with your 3 children?
Yes, so to be honest, they are grown up now.
Yes.
so my daughter is 36, my son is 34, and I have a young one who is 25. And I worked throughout. So I started pretty young, but I worked throughout. And I was, even when we were living in Israel, we were living in Israel until 2003. And my husband was supportive immensely, meaning we both had careers, but his was more always in Israel. But I was a project manager for several years for accounts that were really South Africa, Sweden, Netherlands. And meaning there were a few years where I was traveling 26 times every year, which is a lot of travel, yes. And then in 2003, with this medical device that we co-founded, the investment came from the Benelux, so we moved to Belgium. That was our first hop outside of Israel. And later on, we moved from Belgium to Cambridge, and there we did this Atlassian. We are running Rugby. That is the Atlassian partner.
So is there any advice? So I don't know if it is an advice or a wisdom. How could you do this with 3 children and 2 careers? What gives you the power, the motivation to do that?
I think the cultural context was slightly different, so you need to understand it. That when I learned computer science in Tel Aviv, 50% of the students were women, were girls. Yes, so the presence of females in the Israeli IT industry is just huge. Definitely compared to other locations. And I think actually that statistically speaking, we are going backward. So these generations are not as massive in terms of girls as I was. And I had a friend, so I went to university, I was a few years younger than everybody else because most of the people came after the army. And I had a friend there who was a young mother, and she was an inspiration for me because she was doing all the juggles. I saw her, and then I decided, okay, if she could do that, I could do it too. Yes, so I think it's when you see, I didn't see it with my mother. My mother did not work when I was a kid. She went to work later. But I had older friends who did it, so I just did like them. I think seeing someone else do that is giving you a vision that it can be done.
It's important to have Vorbilder. I don't know the English word for that. Role models.
Yes, yeah. Sure. Meaning, if I did not see role models around, I would think that it's impossible or it's very difficult. Meaning in life, eventually you just do what you think you need to do and what you think is you want to do. Meaning, if you are privileged enough to be able to choose, yes. Meaning, in all cases, when I was on maternity leave, I ran back to work. I could, meaning, when I was sitting at home with the baby, the end of the day came and I felt exhausted emotionally, exhausted physically. I think that going back to work is far easier than staying at home with a kid, for me. And I'm sure that each person is different, but for me that was always, and I was, meaning I think that often women are not expected to say it and are not expected to admit the fact that sitting in an office is easier than sitting with a toddler. And my husband, to be honest, he was, from the beginning, he said, Rina, go back to work. Why are you getting so bored in the house? I don't want you to be like a ball of stress, and because you did not extract your energy during the day. Go to work, the kids will grow. And I can tell you, they have grown.
Question too. I have a daughter. She's 16 years old, and I would like to see her in IT as I'm working in IT too, and I like it. But every time I try to push her into it, she says, "Oh no, God, it's so boring. Just leave me alone, huh?" And I must say she's right. I mean, following my telephone calls, it is boring, talking about jobs and whatever, yeah?
Yes.
But would you have an advice that I could, or would you have an idea how I could encourage her to go into IT nowadays, looking back into the beginning of your career? What can I tell you? What can I tell her?
I think, I'm sorry to say it, but you need to get lucky. What do I mean by that? I thought that I'm lousy at math until I met a good math teacher who turned me around. Yes? So, and you as a parent, your power is limited. You are not all the role models. You just can expose her to different experiences and hope that she sees something that somehow clicks for her. I don't know how to create this thing. My kids, I have a daughter and 2 sons. My daughter studied psychology and law, and the 2 sons are software engineers after they graduated in Cambridge in science. So, meaning you can be sure that at home they saw that STEM is important and so on, but still you cannot, there's just so much that you can do, I think.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And